Hi there, and welcome to Plant CEO. In today's episode, I'm super excited to introduce Seth Goldman, the co-founder of Eat the Change and chairman of the board of Beyond Meat. Hi, Seth. How are you doing?
Doing well. Good to be with you, Adam.
Yeah, great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. You're based in Maryland, right?
Bethesda, Maryland. That's right.
Yeah, awesome. And so we're going to talk about quite a lot of things today. We'll obviously talk about your new initiative and talk a bit about Beyond Meat as well. So let's start with Eat the Change. Can you tell us what it's all about and what inspired you to create it?
Yeah, what we really hope Eat the Change is a movement. It's the beginning of a rallying cry to get people connected to the fact that their diets are their single biggest impact on climate. And to the extent we can awaken in consumers that awareness, and then we can provide them with options, packaged food options that resonate with that concern, that's for us what we're trying to do. And then we also have, as an offshoot of it, we have a restaurant chain that we've launched as well called PLNT Burger. So it won't surprise you that everything on this platform is actually planet-based. So certainly plant-based, there's no animal products, but we also, since we're using fungi, which are mushrooms and fungi, which aren't plants, we have to call it planet-based.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw a couple of months back, the World Wildlife Fund actually started to promote a planet-based diet as well.
That's great.
And I think they put in order in the countries, who was good and bad in terms of a rating system as well. And I think that's really important to start to show that connection with what we need to do to make sure, not necessarily always just for ourselves, but also obviously for our environment. I think it's crucial, actually.
For sure. And I think it's, of course, everything counts. And so driving hybrid cars or biking to work, recycling, all of those things are useful and should be done. But eating is the one thing we do every day that has an impact. We know has an impact, and we know we can change our behavior relatively easily, or certainly more easily now than it's ever been.
Yeah. And I say, every day you're given 3 votes with what you put on your plate.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
To at least have one plant meal a day, that would make a massive impact.
Yeah, for sure. There's different ways to think about it. So about 5% of the U.S. population is vegan or vegetarian. And I think the effort it would take to move people to double that number would be very hard, because people have their habits, they have their tastes, and then there's also recidivism. People who become a vegetarian will switch back, so that's a hard lift. But if you instead say, if we can get everyone to have one more plant-based meal per week, and there's 21 meals in a week, so that's roughly one meal is roughly 5%. If you have one more plant-based meal per week, well, that's relatively easy. It's actually quite easy. And all of a sudden, that's effectively the same as if you double the number of vegans or vegetarians in the population. Of course, some people would like it to be even more ambitious, and I'd say let's get this first one done.
Yeah, exactly.
About the rest.
Yeah. And I think that one meal should ideally be whole food, plant-based. To make sure when you have it, it's super healthy.
Absolutely, and what's happened now, the plant-based alternatives are so much better tasting, so much more available, so much more affordable, so much easier now to cook, that it can really be done seamlessly. And for that matter, as a product like Beyond Meat is now carried in the meat section of almost every major grocery store. So there's not even a change of behavior we're looking for. We're not asking people to go to a part of the store you've never gone to, or cook a dish you've never cooked before in a way you've never cooked before. If it's going to be taco night, just swap in Beyond Meat crumble as what you would put instead of when you put the hamburger on meat. And so it's really it can be a very seamless transition. And then what we're doing with Eat the Change as well on the snack side, and this first product line we've launched is a mushroom jerky. The same idea, where you would normally have a jerky from an animal. Here's a great option. That's a delicious substitute. It has some of the same nutrients. It's just a wonderful alternative.
Yeah. And mushrooms are so versatile, you know, you
Yeah.
can layer on so much flavoring. And I saw you've got this teriyaki ginger one as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued to try, actually.
Yeah. They're like a blank canvas,
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate. My co-founder, Ethan Change, is Spike Mendelsohn, who's really an artist as a chef. And so he can paint the most beautiful pictures on those
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
canvases, and they absorb flavor. And the thing that's neat about mushrooms is they really are, they're between plants and animals. So they have nutrients you wouldn't normally find in plants, like the B vitamins, B2, B3, and really can just fill this unique role in our diets and our
Yeah.
lives.
And obviously that's the first range. Are you planning to build out other lines, other product
For
lines,
sure, for
and
sure.
maybe mix
No, I
mushroom
mean,
with something else, for
well, the
example?
first thing we've got to do is make sure this line works. So we're
Yeah.
just getting started here. We're excited about it. And
Yeah.
but from there, yeah, there's so many places we can go with it. And mushrooms is a great example, but the whole umbrella of the brand will be planet-friendly foods, foods that are also grown organically, so that we know the environmental footprint is much lighter. And then we're also looking for more biodiversity. We're emphasizing, we're going to be staying away from the 6 most common ingredients, the 6 foods that represent over 57% of all agricultural production, which is, staggering to think of that. Our global, all the incredible planet, there's over 500,000 species of plants and fungi, and yet we have 6 crops that represent 57% of all agricultural output, which of course is a very dangerous level of overexposure. We're too reliant on these crops, and our planet can get monocultures if we base our agricultural system that way. So we think it's, for a more resilient planet, it's good to emphasize more diverse crops, and we're doing
Exactly.
that.
Yeah. And also for soil health, which is equally important, right?
Soil health, biome health, animal health, all of it plays. If you create monocultures, the rest of the earth will replicate that, the plants in it as well. And then the other thing we're doing is looking to upcycle food, where with a lot of these mushrooms, they're either oversized or the stems. Well, that doesn't matter for jerky.
No.
So we call them perfectly imperfect, because they wouldn't make it to the retail shelf.
Right.
We can upcycle them, and that's, make it delicious.
Yeah, it's great. And obviously that's a massive thing to reduce food waste at the same time. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
And so what inspired you initially to create Eat the Change?
Yeah, well, I've been a food entrepreneur now for over 20 years. I started Honest Tea out of the same office, by the way, 22 years ago.
Oh,
and
okay. Yeah.
and so always interested in how to make delicious foods, healthier foods, more widely available. And so did that with Honest Tea and scaled that. We sold to Coca Cola, and then got involved with Beyond Meat, and really enjoyed that, and still connected very closely to Beyond Meat as chair of the board, but got that itch to create something new, and thought about where were the spaces that weren't taken. I certainly wouldn't go to try to create a new delicious plant protein. That's what Beyond Meat is doing.
Yeah.
But where were the other spaces that a company like Beyond Meat wasn't occupying? We realized when you could sell food in its native form, like what we do with the jerky, where you can absolutely recognize the food and it has the same nutrients as the food, but you could make it more available and more accessible. And you could awaken, I think every consumer, every person wants to do what's best for the planet. They just don't necessarily have the information and the means to do it. So let's inform people, and let's make it easier. And then once we can start, bring them in and get them, being consumers, but there's so much more we can do. But the other wonderful thing to keep in mind when we talk about changing your eating habits to reflect your concerns about the planet is you're inculcating in the person a daily activity, and that's a daily mindset. And that also then impacts, well, okay, now they think about what kind of car they might need to drive, or whether they need a car at all. You start bringing a environmentalism, a climatarian mindset to every person and the way they behave. And that also really changes behavior. We've seen that time and again. It's funny, when the Prius first came out, there were all these people who felt so virtuous because they were driving these hybrid cars. And, well, yes, it's better than what they were driving, very likely. But more, almost as important, was it sort of made them think, oh, well, I'm an environmentalist now. And if you can do that with a car, I'd love to be able to see that awaken in what you give people eat. And so make that daily thought process.
Exactly. And you've got a lot to thank your son, actually, who helped you towards...
All my sons, all of my sons have played a role in my different businesses, going back to, with Honest Tea, my middle son was the one who said to me, hey, can I bring Honest Tea to school, for my lunch? And I'm like, well, it's a little, that glass bottle, it's heavy. Yeah. And he said, yeah, but the drinks you're putting in my lunchbox are these really sugary pouches. Why don't you make something else? And that led to the creation of Honest Kids, which is really the most successful product extension of Honest Tea. And then our oldest son was the one, when he was 10 years old, he became vegetarian on his own and convinced his brothers to become
By the way, what made him turn vegetarian at such a,
just a very curious kid. He's dyslexic, so I think he doesn't see the world as many people see it. And he pretty quickly saw there's this weird thing where some people have animals that are pets, and some people have animals that they kill, and eat.
I think Ethan Brown obviously went through that realization.
Absolutely. Yeah. And by the time our oldest son became 13, it was time for his bar mitzvah. He gave an interpretation of a Torah portion and asked, well, if we can meet our dietary needs without killing animals, why wouldn't we try to do that? And I didn't have a good answer. I mean, the normal answer is, well, because animals taste really good, which is, is a fact. But when you frame it that way, it's actually, well, that's worth trying. And I would say, so upon that event, his 13-year-old bar mitzvah, we became vegetarian as a family. And we were always happy with the decision from an ethical perspective, but we were frequently disappointed from a taste perspective. It just, these things just don't taste as good. And that's when, in 2012, when my wife read this article about Beyond Meat getting started out in California, we knew, that was something we're pursuing. So I sent an email to info@beyondmeat.com and said, hey, I'd love to help out if there's any way I can help you grow and reach your goals. And I got, involved with the team there and helped them really scale the business and grow and have enjoyed that very much. So
I'm glad they responded to the info act.
Right? I am too. Yeah. And now that oldest son of mine, Jonah, is the head of marketing for PLNT Burger. And we were getting this restaurant started, this plant-based restaurant, and we're trying to think, well, who's going to be effective at building this interest in this concept? Well, the original persuader, and so he's done a fantastic job. With creative marketing for this restaurant.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you have a son that also has a vegan restaurant, is that right?
That's Jonah. That's Jonah, the oldest one. Yeah.
That is okay. Right, I see.
Our youngest son is working for a plant-based ice cream company called Eclipse Foods out in Berkeley.
Okay.
And, we're just getting started, and so we're all different. Everyone's bringing something.
Everyone's mission aligned in your family.
For sure.
And if you think about the name Eat the Change, I think you said it was derived from Be the Change, which wasn't an actual quote from Gandhi, right?
That's right. It was a paraphrase of a Gandhi's quote. And my son Jonah was the one who came up with that. He was, as we're getting the restaurant together, he's saying, well, what's the call to action? And his original was Be the Change you wish to see in the world, which even though Gandhi didn't say those exact words, he did give a speech where he talked about how everyone could awaken in themselves a sense of responsibility. That would be a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
And so this is a subset of that, which is, think about every time you eat, thinking about, if you're concerned about change, make what you eat, change that, and then you'll see change that.
Yeah, it is really about that connection, with what's on your plate and where it came from and what it was before.
That's right.
You consuming, the energy of that flesh will become part of you, right? It's
For sure.
it's a very spiritual thing. And actually, Gandhi, my dad was actually born in the same town as Gandhi, a place
Really?
by the coast in India called Porbandar. So my dad was actually born in there, and he was my dad. Gandhi was alive when my dad was little, like 4.
Yeah.
Back in the days.
Well, we've always felt very inspired by Gandhi, what he stood for, what he tried to communicate to people. Um, that's a wonderful model.
Yeah, totally. So part of Eat the Change is also a marketplace. Is that right?
Well, there's a few things. So it started, like I said, we got the restaurant Plant Burger.
Right.
Before we launched the brand, consumer brand, the packaged brand that is the mushroom jerky.
Yeah, lovely.
We had a grant. We have a grants program we set up, and this is my wife and I are giving out $1 million over 3 years to nonprofits focused on inspiring people to make that shift. And we really targeted the grants. We gave away the first third this past summer. We're targeting the grants towards communities that often lack awareness or access to planet-friendly foods. And
yeah, that's
some phenomenal partners that we funded and doing really inspiring things, but seeking out whether educational or community gardens or different food programs to educate people about. And it's both for health and for planet.
Yeah, that's great. And in terms of Plant Burger, you're now in 7 locations.
Right.
Being a quick service restaurant, and it's in the Mid-Atlantic area. Is that right?
That's right. We Virginia up through near Pennsylvania, Wynwood, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
It's all located inside of Whole Food stores, which has actually been very fortunate because I can't say I envisioned the pandemic, but obviously being able to stay open throughout this entire very turbulent year has been helpful to the business, and we haven't had to pay. What the challenge so many restaurants have had is when they can stay open is they're paying for space where no one can sit, and that's just a tough business proposition, and we don't have that situation with things.
Yeah. Are you sure that Bill Gates didn't whisper in your ear, it's coming?
No. I look, it's such an unusual and unexpected situation. But I will say what I did envision was this, as someone who's never been in the restaurant business before said, gosh, that model seemed challenging. That you're saying to me, I have to pay a fixed rent no matter what happens in the restaurant. I could be closed for a month for whatever reason, and I still have to pay that rent. That doesn't seem like as desirable an arrangement as if I could find a way to work with the landlord and share. They'll obviously the more we sell, the better they do. But if we don't sell anything, we don't have to pay them.
Yeah. So in terms of Whole Foods, obviously that was a great move. Obviously, the essential service to stay open. Are you exclusively going to be rolling out with them going forward, or?
No, I think we'll certainly open some outside of Whole Foods as well. But we don't feel, especially right now, there's not an urgency to do that. It's still a very perilous time in the food service world, and you see so many of these concepts going under. So part of it is let's wait, let's make sure we can continue to survive, which we're certainly doing. And then also, at a certain point, I think we hope some landlords will rethink their model. And if they do, we'll be happy to work with them.
Yeah, makes sense. And moving on to Beyond Meat now, obviously hugely successful, now worth 8.6 billion-ish in terms of market cap. You must be very proud of what you and Ethan and the whole team have achieved.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see this idea come to not just to fruition, but to scale. And to see it catch hold. There's a great phrase when we were doing our road show that I kept quoting as Victor Hugo. This is, there's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And this was an idea that even, 10 years ago, this idea would have been, even 5 years ago, I think most people wouldn't have quite gotten that idea, but now people get it. And
yeah.
now it feels, I don't want to say obvious, but quite clear people get it. But just so that's a huge shift. And I don't know that there's been a time, at least that I've been in the food business, where that something has shifted that quickly, that positively. You might go back to, and I don't know enough about the history of when did canned food, canning of foods was a big advancement, or even freezing of foods was a big advancement. These, fundamental shifts in behavior that changed the way people eat.
Yeah. And so today, what would you say you're most excited about at Beyond Meat?
Oh, well, what's so exciting is just the innovations just keep coming. That once you break through, as Beyond Meat did with the Beyond Burger, what you really, it's not just creating a product, it's a science. And once you get that platform established, then you can go in so many wonderful directions. And we've seen it now with the sausage and the breakfast sausage and the sausage links. But of course, there'll be more. And we talked about our aspiration to really target every major meat occasion and replicate, the taste, the texture, the nutrition, not just replicate, but improve upon it. And then not just improve upon it, but make it more tasty, more nutritious. And of course, it is already much more climate friendly. And then I think the real powerful step will be when we can underprice animal-based meat. And we've talked about being able to do that in certain categories within 5 years. And then the question will flip. And this will be an exciting moment that we will live through, which is, well, if it's tastier, more nutritious, and better environmentally, and less expensive, why do you need the animal? Because I don't think humans have this need to really kill animals. It's just, it's because that's what gets you delicious food. And so I think that'll be a very powerful transformation. And I can envision a moment, I guess I'll frame it, let's say I have grandchildren, where they'll ask, did you really grow up during a time where the mainstay of the diet was based on, cultivating and slaughtering billions of sentient creatures? That'll just seem hard to believe when plant-based protein is so common and so widely used, but when it is the majority of the protein that we use to feed people.
And do you think you'll stay exclusively on meat alternatives? Would you look into dairy alternatives? Do you think that could be an option?
Well, we haven't made any public statements on that. The one thing I will say is that the science of working with plants and proteins is it's just like a field of science. Once you understand how those work, you can see it expanding across multiple platforms. So we haven't made any statements there, but the science, it was so exciting to see these scientists be so effective in what they're doing and expanding the base of knowledge that we can work from.
Yeah, and there's obviously when Ethan started the company, there was a lot of collaborations with the universities and really a lot of emphasis, him personally going to the labs and working with these professors. How much of the team now is like the R&D side?
Oh my goodness, huge. So when I joined, there were about 6 folks. We're over 130.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Now.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely the crown jewel of the business. It is what the business is based on, is that science. It's our competitive advantage. It's what drives the innovation. So, we're just continuing to grow it. The few challenges here during the pandemic, these folks cannot work from home. This is work that has to be done in labs. They have to, whether it's because they're tasting product or dealing, with scientific materials or food safe environments. And so we've had to, we had them all working together in buildings, and we had to expand the space, and we had to basically set up 2 shifts so that we put the folks who work, from 6 in the morning till about 1 in the afternoon, and then we clean everything thoroughly, and then another group comes in, at 2 and works until late at night. But it's just so inspiring to see what they can do. the company's based in Southern California, not far from Manhattan Beach, and we call it the Manhattan Beach Project because we want to replicate the scale of effort that the Manhattan Project was. The scale of the brain power assembled to address a global problem.
Yeah, and in terms of Beyond Meat and them remaining competitive, especially against new entrants, either QSRs developing their own ones, supermarkets we're creating their own brands, other competitors. What do they need to do to
Well, that's the key. That Manhattan Beach Project is both our key advantage, and so it is continually challenged to improve. We have no one is more eager to put our products out of business than ourselves. So keep improving, and so like I say, can we improve the nutritional profile? Can we improve the taste? Can we improve the cost? And so they just keep innovating. They keep going after it, and they're extremely proud and positive about what they're doing.
Yeah. So if I had to say to you, if you had to look at like taste, odor, structure, those main three things
texture as well.
Yeah. When do you think, if you had to put a date on it, that average meat eater wouldn't be able to tell the difference between your product?
And it's not exactly the goal to replicate it to the exact, it's to provide a delicious tasting product. So I would, I eat a Beyond Burger. If I were to eat that versus a beef burger, I know the difference. And there may never be a time when you could tell the difference. That the goal is to make something delicious, as satisfying, as tasty, but the goal isn't to perfectly replicate in every sense. I mean, there's some aspects of meat, for example, it has a little bit of animal meat can have a little bit of metallic taste. We don't necessarily need that. But to have something delicious, I think we're already there. And there's certain tweaks we'll continue to make around color, things like that. But we will always continue to iterate. And to try to improve, and like I say, not just to improve taste, but nutrition. Can we make these products with, we're taking a big step here. We've announced what we call our 3.0, where we'll have less saturated fat, equally tasty and satisfying. But that's something we know consumers would seek out if it tasted as good. So we'll just continue to do that.
Yeah, that's great. And this year, there's been a huge rise in plant-based meat. There's a new report that's come out that said this year it will be worth 4.3 billion, and by 2025, 8.3. And that's just for the plant-based meat part of the alternatives. What sort of new breed of plant-based companies would you like to see come to market that obviously, isn't here today?
Well, I think it's going to go after every category. So, we're focused on meat, but there'll also be more cheese, more egg companies for sure going after this. You're going to see the cultivated or the cell-based companies continue to mature. Obviously, companies going after fish categories as well. So I would say it's still very, very early in this whole movement. And it'll just continue to flourish as sales, grow.
Yeah, and what's your opinion on cultivated and cell-based approach of meat?
Yeah, I mean, I personally chose not to make that bet. I believe in plant-based. I think the consumer will still have some concerns there. I think also that just because you can replicate the muscle tissue doesn't necessarily mean you can replicate the fat tissue. The magic of meat isn't the muscle or the fat, it's the interlacing really of the two. And so that's something Beyond Meat's been working at for at least 11 years, building on science. It's been around longer than that. So I think that the folks cultivating, when you read these articles about cultivated meat, so much of it is the early small samples that cost $10,000 It's
Not very
deeply fried. Yeah, and they serve it to you in a deeply fried media. Well, anything tastes. You can stick a book and fry it well. Maybe it'll taste good. So I think the challenge still ahead for those folks is, can you actually replicate the right occasion of meat? And that said, there's a lot of, we don't know the resource intensity. So it's a little bit like fuel cells, where they'll be great for the future, and they always will be. But I'm not convinced that replicated or cultured meat will have the same audience, will be met with the same kind of reception. But the other thing to keep in mind is, if we think, let's say it's going to happen 5 years from now, it'll be at a commercial scale. If you take if you look at how much plant-based protein has improved in the past, really, I can't even say 5 years, because it hasn't really been on the market until 2016. So you look at the improvements that have happened in the past 4 years, and you assume those improvements will continue, and the behavior patterns will continue as well. I think the cultured meat folks are still going to have, it's going to be challenging to make inroads against what will become a much more established category.
For sure. And finally, in terms of honesty, are you still in touch with your old colleagues?
Very much so, yeah. They're wonderful. They're still almost, I would say daily, certainly on social media, we're in touch almost daily, and I love following the brand. I was just traveling this past weekend and enjoyed seeing it in different markets. I think what's really nice about Honesty is that it's still honest. It's still the brand that my co-founder Barry and I envisioned that we hope it would be. It's still, not just less sweet. It's still organic. It's still fair trade certified, and so and it's having, we talked about trying to democratize organics, and so it's really satisfying to see that. It's also satisfying to see it carried in restaurants like McDonald's and Wendy's and Chick-fil-A and Subway. Very much mainstream places where people weren't going. They don't go to those stores to seek out organic food, and yet here it is. So it's going to be the first organic food that millions of people will experience, and that's really a wonderful starting point as we try to get more people to embrace organic food.
Yeah, and obviously you had President Obama, who was a big fan, and last night I asked you, is he still drinking it? And you sent me this video, so I'm going to just play that now.
Perfect. Yeah, let's do it.
Let's play that.
I do have some very specific requirements in my writing. Just like I write on a yellow legal pad with a particular uniball fine point pen, I also need honest teas, which give me a little bit of a buzz, but don't get me too amped up. Green Dragon tea is probably my preferred flavor, although they've got some others. But if I've got my honest tea there with my pad and my pen, then usually I'm pretty good.
So he's obviously a great fan still.
It's so fun. Yeah, I met him. Let's see, I go back now. I guess it would have been 2007, just before he announced he was running for president. And he was telling me how I had heard, because he was in the Senate and his office had been ordering honest tea. And so I happened to be on a plane with him, and I mentioned, I'm the honest tea guy. And he said how much he liked it. And then I got to see him again a few times over the years when he was in the White House. And he would always make a point of saying, Marvin, show him what you got. And his body man, the guy who sort of carried around these materials, always had a bottle of honest tea.
Oh, nice.
So, and then at the time, when he was in the White House, he said he had to move away from Green Dragon tea over to Black Forest Berry because the caffeine was making him a little jumpy. So he moved herbal, and so that's been fun to have a great prominent fan like that.
Yeah.
Although I should say we have lots of prominent fans from all types of different political persuasions.
Yeah. Maybe you need to send some to Joe Biden now, see if he can carry the flag across.
Yeah.
Great. So I really appreciate you coming to talk to me today.
Yeah, sure.
All the best with Eat the Change and Plant Burger and everybody at Beyond Meat. It's incredible what you've achieved.
Well, thank you for helping make people aware of this whole evolution in people's diets. And, you know, we're, like I say, at a very early stage in this transformation, but, you know, podcasts like yours and whatever we can do to help make people aware is just so important, just to be more thoughtful about it. And to, you know, when you can awaken that in consumers, there's powerful results.
Yeah. Thank you so much again, and see you again soon.
Okay. Cheers.
Thanks very much.